2 weeks. Hey, we haven't done this in a minute. Like, I might be rusty, y'all. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails in Christ. We have been incognito. I would say the other incog, but we haven't been here for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 episodes. 2 weeks. Two Tuesdays. We're sorry. I'm very sorry. As you can see, I'm in my car doing the show.
Last week there was no sound though, so that would have been kind of interesting.
That kind of would have been kind of interesting. I don't think nobody's a lip reader per se.
I'm not.
And the week before, I was actually in traffic at the time, so I can't do it in traffic. I just pull over in the car and do it. No, yeah, we do it anywhere. We receive Jesus anywhere, even in the workplace, out of the workplace, in the car driving. Most of us, and see, that's why you don't do stuff in the car. Most of us pray, for gas and pray for traffic and pray for those people that we were almost running over on the road. We got to pray for them too. They need prayer just as much as you need prayer to get through traffic in Atlanta. Today, welcome back. We missed you guys. I missed you guys. Today we're talking about Ruth, and are we talking about Naomi too? Or are we leaving Naomi off the whole platter? Because she really didn't have no baby. She didn't have no Boaz. She was like the intro.
Super important. Naomi's super important. Boaz is like peripheral.
Okay, so we're gonna leave Boaz in the back seat. He's way back there. We're Uber driving with not even Uber. What's that one that they do? Karaoke in the car with Ruth and Naomi today. Bishop Zach, are you gonna pray, or do you want me to pray? Since
you can pray, go for it.
Man, I need a prayer. I needed a prayer, not to be praying. I needed a prayer right about now. All right, Heavenly Father, we come before you wherever we are right now, in the car, in the middle of a parking lot, at home, on our job, in our living rooms, in Bible study, work study, life study, and we're asking for impartation of your word. Impart on us your knowledge and your wisdom and your truth so that we can be fully fed. Our eyes will be open, and all that needs to be revealed will be seen and not hidden. In Jesus' wonderful name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Ooh, that was good.
Amen. Today we're talking about Ruth. I don't know that I'm unavailable. So today we're talking about Ruth. And so everybody knows Ruth, the Boaz. And so, Nisha, there goes that song again. Why is that song keep popping up? We can't go back to the beginning. That's the song. So here we go. Here we are again by Elevation Worship keeps popping up on my radar all day. It's overriding all my calls. It's literally just like I can receive a call, be talking, and here it is in the background playing. Ooh. No, that's what it's been doing all day. Every time it just keeps popping up. So I'm going to go listen to it and worship later to see what God's saying. We can't go back to the beginning. So we're not going back there at the beginning of this wilderness series. Oh, so before we get into Ruth and Boaz, guess what? I had an interview today. Guess what the girl name was?
What?
Tanisha Zachary.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. My first interview for the day.
I don't know if Miss Patty is watching yet. Miss Patty, if you know who that is, you let us know.
Tanisha Zachary is her name. That is the young lady's name.
Mm-hmm. I need to meet her. She sounds awesome.
Okay. She was pretty awesome. Our interview went very well, actually. So Tanisha Zachary, if you're watching or you're hearing, hopefully you'll be hired soon. And I can extend a job offer to you.
And congratulations on the forefront.
Yeah, her birthday's coming up too, but it's side story. Not what Ruth and Boaz. So most of us know Ruth and Boaz because of Boaz. Everybody wants a Boaz. Everybody can't have a Boaz because you're not a Ruth. And you didn't go through what Ruth went through to get the Boaz. And you don't really want a Boaz because Boaz was old. Just saying. But everybody prays for a Boaz. Praise for the rescue, the guy that comes and rescue them. But Ruth actually and Naomi is actually the redemption part of the story. Just Ruth, her kindness, her heart, just who she was overall. She's just a sweet person. Like Ruth went above and beyond for her mother-in-law. and she left everything. And, you know, it's the funny theme that keeps coming up, even going back to Sarah, leaving everything you know to follow someone else.
Mm-hmm.
That trust in someone else, which Naomi went back to Bethlehem after she lost her two sons. So Naomi was married to, what's his name again? Can't remember her husband's name. Elimelech. And so Elimelech was wealthy, actually. He was wealthy because Boaz is wealthy. Their family member is wealthy, you know, travels in the family. They're from the tribe of Ephraim, living in Bethlehem of Judea. I love how the movie says it too, Bethlehem of Judea. And so I love that part in the movie. If you've never watched the movie, go back and watch. If you've never read the little blue book that Ruth comes in, go back and read it. So Elimelech and his wife and his two sons, Milan and I can't say his Kilon, left Judea because there was a famine. And when there's a famine, so give you some backstory. Elimelech was wealthy, and the way the city was set up, it was set up to help the poor and the needy. And as they have field and crops, what you're supposed to do by their laws and customs was supposed to leave a little bit for the gleaners, which are the poor people, the people who didn't have anything. So you're supposed to leave stuff behind for them. Tithing and all of that, that's for them, just to get it out there in the open. It's for them. And so out of your abundance, you're supposed to leave some for the others. So Elimelech was one of those people like, well, I don't want to leave none of my abundance for anybody else. So let me take my stuff and I'm going to move to Moab. I'm going to take all my stuff and move to Moab. So he goes to Moab, and he gets to Moab. He still has his wealth. He's still well known. He's almost like, you know, a government official going, you know, has diplomatic immunity or whatever. And he goes to another country, still has the power, still has his title, still has everything. And so his son marries, both his children marry really, really well. Ruth was actually a princess in Moab. So she had wealth, and she was brought up in royalty, and she married into the family because it's wealth, and you know, you married for succession. And so both the sons die and the husband die. So all of them die in Moab after being there for 10 years? I think it was 10 years after completion. God completed some stuff, and he's like, okay. So they were already gleaning actually in Moab, if my mind serves me correct, because they lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you go from having everything, leaving, not wanting to share your wealth with the poor so you can be blessed more. You take it and you run with it. You run across town with it. And you get across town and you lose everything. And then you die, and your two sons die. And so when you see Naomi going back to Bethlehem and saying, which her name, Nisha, what is her name again? Beauty or something like that?
Pleasant.
Naomi means pleasant. And she's like, no, don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, which means bitter. Because she's bitter. She's literally bitter because she had everything, left with everything, lost everything. And she feels like God is punishing her because they left and she supported her husband in leaving. And so Ruth, she said to both her daughter-in-laws, Oprah and Ruth, hey, I can't have any more sons. Even if I marry somebody tomorrow and I had a son, which I hope, maybe be thinking about, which I'm really not right now. I'm too old and dusty, so that ain't gonna happen. I wouldn't even have a son for you to marry. So go back to your family. You can remarry again by law because your husband passed away. And so you can remarry and have a whole new family. And Oprah was like, she had to convince him a little bit. And Oprah was like, okay, well, you said to go back to my family. Let me go back and see if I can find happiness. Ruth is like, no, where you go, I go. Where you know, I'm sticking to you like glue. Like, I love your God. I love everything about you. I've learned your custom. I learned your ways. I'm leaving my idol worshiping behind. Everything that I know, all this stuff. And you see that kind of replicating with Abraham and Sarah, leaving everything behind, even with Rachel and Leah. And whatchamacallit, what's her name? Isaac's wife, Rebecca. Yes, you see them leaving all of that behind to follow God and his ways and his customs and what he says. And so Ruth leaves her life of legacy and just having a future all over again to follow Naomi to Bethlehem of Judea. I'm always going to say that. And when they get there, they're starting all over again. everybody knows Naomi because of her husband and because of the wealth that they left with. So I'm guessing everybody's thinking when she comes back, she's going to have all of that. And she's like, no, I ain't come back with none of that. I actually came back empty handed. Now I'm one of the people that I was running away from. Now I'm the gleaner in the field. Mm-hmm. And so Ruth was like, well, I'll go glean. Because you're too old to be on the field. I want to do this for you. And so her heart extends beyond that. And so she goes out to glean and she ends up in Boaz's field. And Boaz looks favorably upon her actually after meeting her because they're family actually. Because they were family and he found out they were family. He found out actually what she had done for her mother-in-law, which she didn't really have to do. And it just shows you the kindness in her heart. Like it extended beyond herself and she was thinking about somebody else. And so here it is, Ruth going out to glean, getting favor. And she was really humbled at the fact that Boaz showed her favor when he really didn't have to. And so she got the favor. She went back and told Naomi, and she didn't actually, when she received the favor, here goes the funny thing that she doesn't do, which most of us probably would have took it and ran. She received the favor and she didn't show her booty. She wasn't telling nobody to kiss her butt because she could have had more than enough, because he did tell them, hey, make sure you drop a little bit more than you normally do so that she can have more. And she could have used that and took it and ran with it and just like, oh, I'm all that in a bag of chips. I can have everything I want. She didn't do that. She still humbled herself and received she received more. That's pretty much partly my take on the Ruth story. Miss Zachary has a whole lot more because she don't see Ruth with Boaz. Not that she don't see Boaz in the story. The story, we always made the story about Ruth finding Boaz and, finding the husband. He's great. Trust me, he's wonderful. You're not going to discount him. But Ruth is about redemption. Actually, if you look at the backstory, even digging in a little bit further, who the Moabites are, and how that reconciliation happened through the generation and reconciling them back together as one, because the Moabites were actually from the split of Lot and Abraham. Mm-hmm. And you see the descendants coming back and making that reconnection and doing that redemption right there and coming back and bridging that gap to still bring them into promises. So, Ms. Zachary, you take it all the way from here.
Alrighty. See, I love the book of Ruth. There's so many stories in here that I love, right? But so for me, as a married woman, I'm not looking at Boaz. Boaz is like peripheral. Like I've already found mine and he means nothing to me. But if you look at every other piece of the story, there is something that every single woman, whether you're looking for Boaz, you've already found Boaz, or you don't care about Boaz, there is something in this story that you can relate to. So for me, it starts with the relationship between Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah. And there are a lot of people that talk about the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship and how contentious it could be. And how, you hear all these stories all the time about how awful
women can't get along.
How they can't get along. And this story strikes me as something totally different. So yeah, Orpah decided, she was going to go. So maybe she had that kind of relationship with Naomi where she was like, I'm done, or maybe it was just like, here's an opportunity. But either way, she didn't feel the need to stick around. But Ruth had a different kind of relationship, obviously, because she's like, wherever you go, I'm going. Wherever, whoever your people are, they're going to be my people too. And so that just shows like there is room for women to have decent relationships and be kind and compassionate to each other and be loyal to each other. But also going even just to the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship, it doesn't have to be contentious. And so I don't know if y'all hear me talking about Miss Patty on here. I know if she's not on here yet, she will be on here shortly. But that's my mother-in-law. And she has been like a ride or die from the time I was 17. And she is one of my biggest supporters. Like every time we're on here, she's here. If I'm doing a video somewhere else, she's there. When it comes to my kids, she's there. And it's not because of the kids, because she was here long before, the kids got here. But the relationship that we have, like we can sit and talk on the phone about anything and everything. And I know that if I have an issue, if I have a problem, if I need something worked out, I can go to her and we can have that kind of conversation. If something were to happen to my husband or her husband, Miss Patty is still going to be taken care of, like no doubt. So that's the first thing for me, is just seeing that relationship and having it as a model of how to deal with your mother-in-law or the other women in your life in general. But even going so far as like when they entered back into the promised land, which I'll get back to in a minute, but they went back to the promised land. So there's no way she could have left Bethlehem of Judea and gone somewhere else had they not already been in the promised land. So that's what everybody needs to remember. They were in the promised land first, and then they decided to leave and go do their own thing because of their own selfish ambitions and reasons or whatever. And God brought them back. But he brought them back humbled, knowing that, you know, this is where I want you to be, and I'm going to make it right once you get back in a place. So your blessing comes in a certain place. Even if you've decided to take a detour, God's going to bring you back to your place of blessing. But when she gets there, Ruth is a foreigner. She's an alien to this particular nation, and they don't recognize her. Her identity is lost. She has no name to them. They don't even address her. Like, they talk to Naomi and nobody addresses her. Like, she's peripheral. She like is completely ignored until Boaz steps up and says, "Who are you?" And he recognizes her. Like, he recognizes her presence and he sees her and he listens to her response. That is the first time that Ruth can stand in her power. And I think that is the redeeming thing about Boaz for me, is that, yeah, he redeemed the family line and all of that. Yeah, that's great. But
that came from him. Like, what are you talking about? Take that, man.
No, I
Jesus came from that, so you know.
But had he not seen her first, none of that would have happened. And so,
and she was a Moabite. She was not light, actually.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But Ruth and Naomi had such a bond that he recognized her as part of the family when nobody else would. Mm. And I think that is a huge part of that. We started back at the beginning of all of this, Cocktails in Christ, with Eve and her identity situation. And here we have, like, in this whole redemption story, the identity is like, you know, step up and own who you are from the beginning. So I think we've come full circle from Eve to Ruth, and being able to see, okay, whether or not anybody else in the world sees it, God sees me. And those people who know me and that he's put around me in my circle, they see me, and they can validate me when I can't validate myself. Just like Ruth validated Naomi and brought her back, you know, back into her old self. And so I think for me, the redemption comes in, one, knowing your identity, the redeeming of female relationships, and of course, you know, the redemption of the bloodline and King David and Jesus coming through all of that. I mean, not like that's minimized or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, there's so much more to this story than just trying to find a man. There's so much to the story.
You know, it's so funny, you know, as we go through these episodes, the last 2 weeks, she could tell you, I didn't see myself even in the Ruth situation. And it wasn't until I had to go back and study Ruth, y'all. I know Ruth. I read Ruth, and I saw Ruth I got some revelation in Ruth before we even started Cocktails in Christ. It was going through the books, and I was in Ruth, and I got revelation. But as you were actually talking, I got what the revelation is now for Ruth. When you were talking about the redemption power and what Ruth did, you see Ruth's actions actually in the kindness of her. She didn't go brag what she did for Naomi. She wasn't even taking credit for what she did for Naomi. She literally was just in a place of humility and like, no, I love this person. This is what I'm going to do. And when you were talking about the mother-daughter relationship, it's about female relationships. And right now in the workplace, literally as you were talking, I know what I need to do to be a right Naomi and a Ruth. And sometimes we look at it as, you know, you have that mother-in-law, you have that strong mother-in-law, you have that daughter. Sometimes it's your colleague. Sometimes it's your friend. Sometimes it's someone that's really close to you that you're on this journey with. And, you know, the redemption power of just saying, I'm sorry, even if you did not even commit the act. It's kind of like, no, Ruth didn't take Naomi to Moab.
Nope.
She could have actually been like, oh, well, you know, I'm not married to your son anymore. Deuces, see you later. I'll let you, girl. and Oprah stayed with her. They actually was with her when she lost everything, and they went through that process with her. Ruth was just like, I've been through this process with you. And I think, Anisha, this me and you relationship. I've been through this process with you. So it's almost like, no, I'm not leaving her. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm sorry. Like, you're stuck to me like glue in this process. Like, we've been through the trenches together. Yeah. You see me at the height and you see me at the bottom, and you stayed here with me and you helped me, and you never was one saying, oh, well, I did that. And it was never nothing like that between Ruth and Naomi. And even with Oprah, it never said she actually even said anything. She just kind of was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to grow and to build a life. And maybe that's what her desire was. And it was like, okay, now Ruth was like, no, I'll leave all of this behind to follow you. We built this relationship. She saw what the struggles of Naomi was going to be. Going back. Imagine leaving somewhere with wealth and notoriety and having to go back.
Yeah.
And having nothing at all. And nobody in your corner to even look out for you. So here comes Naomi in this position where I'm going back to where I'm from. And when I left there, I was someone else. And I'm having to come back in this humble place, a place of humility. And now where I was a giver, now I'm a beggar.
Yep.
Where I had wealth, now I have nothing. I am lower than the house servant.
Yep.
And then here's Ruth like, no, you don't have to go out and be that person. I will stand in the gap for you.
Yep.
I'll go out there and glean. And she didn't even say, well, I'm a princess. I can't do that. I'm too cute for that. She didn't say none of that. And she's a Moabite. Moabites aren't light. And so she's facing an uphill battle to go out there and glean for her and her mother-in-law.
Yep.
And then just how much courage it took, how much humbling to self, like literally dying to your ego, to everything that will come and say, girl, you ain't got to put up with none of this. You can go back to your daddy's house and be living up in wealth and high hopes. And any man will marry you because of your position and your status and all you have. And it's kind of like, yeah, you're choosing to stay right here. Oh, dear. Yep. And imagine how many people were talking about Naomi and what she had to hear.
Yep.
And that's they talked about her wondering, well, if y'all didn't think so, they did.
They did. Because there's all these decisions that were made, and you're going back to people who knew you, and like, how do you allow your family to be associated with these people? Now you're one of them, and that's why probably God is punishing you for going over there in the first place. All these things people will start saying, like, why everything you've done was wrong. But had the family not gone over there and gotten involved with the Moabites in the way that they did, then the whole lineage would have shifted.
It would have shifted, and one decision.
Yep.
And Naomi thought that when she, God had punished her because she knew the decision. She knew why they left. She knew the decision her husband made, but she thought that God was punishing. I was like, no, I'm just humbling you so that I can give you greater. Whereas both your sons didn't give you any descendants. You're going to meet a Moabite, hated one of the ones that we don't like. And a lineage is going to come through that. A priestly, Jesus came through that. Idol worshiping. Let me just give you all straight, plain as day. Idol worshiping. God didn't take the perfect and he can create something perfect out of what we call imperfections.
Right. And I think that's the thing. Like, she was able to walk away. She had spent all this time with Naomi. It's not like she was walking away completely blind and she was walking into this with her head in the clouds. Like, she had been under Naomi for a while. So she had learned the custom. She had come to believe certain things. And I believe that is why she was able to say, your people are my people, and where you go, I go.
Yeah, because she saw the blessings she saw the relationship. But she's even one of the chosen ones, because she still comes from the Lot lineage, which Abraham, they were family. They left their father's house together. They left together. And so here you are, going back to do the reconciliation, to come back. If her husband made the decision in God's plan to go where he went, not out of the right heart, but it all worked together for God's good, and for King David to come out of that, and for Jesus to come out of that. So, God still knows how to work everything for his good, because he's the architect of this whole thing. Ruth was, I didn't get the lesson. I read Ruth twice, twice. And I literally, when you were talking, was where I got the revelation of what I need to do to reconcile a female to female relationship. Because one of the biggest places that we see that is in our personal relationship with other females and in the workplace. They really think women, someone said to me today, you girls can't play in the sandbox together.
Yep.
And men believe that because of how we deal with the relationships with each other.
Yeah.
That we can't get along. And sometimes some of us prove it correct based on our behavior, based on our insecurities, based on how we're feeling. And that sometimes it doesn't have nothing to do with the other person. It's just how we're feeling on the inside based on our knowledge, our understanding, and our viewpoint and our experience. And so we project that outwardly. And so it creates animosity in the workplace. When you look at Atlanta Housewives and all these housewife shows, it's a bunch of females bickering at each other.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see them putting, when on Hollywood husbands, do you see them bickering like we do on the housewife show? No. It's not a lot of men show, Husbands of Hollywood. Well, it's called Husbands of Hollywood, but there's not a lot of other of those shows running around. It's mostly exploiting the relationship with women and the animosity that is created, and we exploit it.
Yeah, because it makes for good TV.
And it's kind of like
in a fishbowl when you allow yourself to be played that way into those kind of relationships.
And it's sad. It's sad that we create these relationships and we can't have open and honest conversations with one another without feeling like, oh, well, she thinks she's better than me. And in Ruth and Naomi's situation, you don't hear none of that happening. Older to younger. And I think Naomi never, in the whole dynamic of it, Naomi never said, well, I know better. And Ruth never said, I know less. Mm-hmm. And even in today's society where the older is supposed to be teaching the younger, even in that dynamic, what are we doing? The elders of the female elders of the church, the mothers of the church,
criticizing.
What are we doing to help develop the younger generation so that some of the mistakes aren't repeated, that some of the heartaches, some of the wrong decisions aren't repeated? What kind of relationships are we creating? Are we creating a Ruth and Naomi relationship? Because that's for the church. That's for the elder women in the church to look, and it's not looking at it from your point of view, looking at it from a kingdom point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it from a kingdom.
Looking at the opportunities that girls have now compared to what you had. And it's like, okay, if I had this opportunity, how could I have done things differently? And sharing that part of your experience with them, rather just saying, back in my day, we didn't have yada, yada, in a criticizing kind of way, but like sharing, if I'd had this opportunity, this is what I would have done with it. Mm-hmm. And just because as I think about, my grandmother, and understanding her more and more, and certain situations surrounding her and the conversations that we had like over breakfast over the last few years of her life, just understanding her perspective made me understand a lot more some of the things that I didn't understand when I was younger, like the whys and where and what fors and all of that stuff. Like, why would you do this? Why would you allow this? And understanding the times, which I couldn't have comprehended without her knowledge, without her story, makes it easier to understand, okay, that was her circumstance. So if I'm repeating that pattern and that's not my circumstance, then why am I doing that? Like, what generational curses could we break if people would just share their stories?
And it's not even, we overcome by the word of, our testimony, the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Stop trying to sugarcoat your testimony.
Yes.
Stop. Because giving someone the details and not in a condemning way, but actually sharing like, I could have done this better in this situation. And I see maybe that you might be going that way, and I want to, kind of steer you from having the full blow of that. Pretending like you're holier than thou, like you just got saved yesterday, and you were saved from the day you were born, and you had never made a mistake, you had never committed a sin, and it's kind of like that disconnect because they're too young, they won't understand. No, if somebody told them, maybe they would understand. Maybe somebody shared and not made it look, like untouchable or unreachable, or that they won't stumble or fall. Those are the things that in the disconnect in the generation is what's happening. The Naomi and the Ruth, the elders of the church, the women of the church, gathering the younger ones and saying, and just putting it out there plain as day. With this situation, with today, these are the opportunities that I was looking for that I didn't get. And, this is, I rather would have waited till I got married to have children. I would have waited till I was a little bit more stable to have children. I would have, focused more on this, focused more on that, teaching the younger girls about marriage, how to sustain in marriage, how to deal, and encouraging them in the things that are positive and, are a positive driving force in their life, and having more support rather than condemnation. And here we are feeling condemned and feeling sin, and it just gives the enemy room to come in and play mind games, and it's a battlefield there. And so now I'm at a losing battle. In Ruth and Naomi relationship, as we're evolving, it's not like the Sarah and Hagar situation. It's not the Leah and Rachel situation where the conflict, the contingent conflict was there, and a man had to separate it. These are two women who decided that, hey, we're going to be close. And then you find the man being the third party coming into that relationship. And so,
again, even with him, I don't think he would have had room to enter that situation if there was contention between them. If Ruth and Naomi were like doing that
at each other's throat.
Right. And I know better than you. I know I'm in your land, but here's how we do it when I'm at home. And, all of those things. If there had been that contention, there would have been no room for him.
Yep. So right. You're so right. It was because of their relationship and what was happening or transpiring prior to him that he heard about, that he's like, oh, I need to look favorable on this, because this doesn't need this. I didn't foster this. This was fostered before me. I can see the hand of God in this relationship. Let me not come in and he could have came in and caused strife.
Yep.
He could have. He could have been like, well, Naomi, I got you because we're family, and you're my relative, but this Moabite woman don't have nothing to do with us. She's not one of us.
Yep. But even with that, going back to Adam and Eve, the lack of communication and the fact that there was room for the devil to insert himself, or the serpent to insert himself, and the adversary has no room in the Naomi, Ruth, Boaz situation, because there is communication there, and they are able to like move as one unit.
You see the unity, and even in their relationship, and moving as one, to get them from point A to point B for the survival of both of them. Right. Things can't work if you're not working together. Yeah. We both can't get better in the workplace if we're not working together. If we're constantly working against each other, it's not going to get any better. And it's just creating more attention to the situation, not for even a positive reason, for a negative reason. And now instead of working together, you're both being overlooked.
Which is even worse, which goes back to, the part of being seen. It's like you have to do the right thing in order to be seen in the right way. That's going to take you to that next level, whether it's in the workplace, in a relationship, just in your own mind. You have to do what you need to do to make it to that next level. If you're, constantly in conflict, you're going to hold yourself back. You've got chains on you that are like keeping you stuck right where you are.
And imagine if Ruth got into her ego and Naomi got into her misery. If Mara got into Naomi, because Mara came off her lips, and it never said, it never said they didn't complain. It never said any of that. But you see them being dealt a hand, and it's kind of like, we can sink, or we can be each other's life vest and rise above this. Make it
That's
to
it.
shore.
That's
Oh
it.
man, didn't that happen to us?
Yes, I was just thinking, but as long as you do have that person that can be like when you are sinking, they are your life vest. They are that little floaty thing that holds you up from the bottom. Like there are certain people that God is going to place around you, and they may not look like you. They may not come from the same place as you. They may be from some faraway place and you may never have met before. But I mean, when God puts the right person in your path, like there's no shifting that. Like the stuff that we've been through in the last year has just been absolutely nuts. But we've held each other down through all of it. Tears and doctor's
Snotty
appointments
faces.
and everything else.
But you know, to create those relationships, the openness and transparency and the clearness and the clarity and knowing that this person's not here to harm me. And I think even with Naomi and Ruth having to trust each other,
Yeah.
to say, you know what, she's not here to harm me. Whatever she does, it's all in love, and not in a manipulative love, but in pure and honest agape. To say, well, you know, she has my best interest at heart. She has God as her lead. So I know anything she does for me or anything she says, it's because it's coming from him through her. And not that she's trying to manipulate me or use me or any of those situations. And you kind of find that um in our society nowadays, hate to say that, you know, you don't want to be used or manipulated, and then you have to check where people's motives are coming from, like, oh, did this person really like me? And then just the relationship wise, there's so many things coming up against the relationship. Self comes up against the relationship, and you see neither one of these ladies were getting into self. Naomi didn't let her bitterness, she kind of was letting her not, I wouldn't say her bitterness, but her shame, having to go back and, you know, not wanting them to experience whatever they were going through before, to take these two young ladies back with her. And she was trying to part ways with them and be like, no, you can have a fulfilling life. Not because I'm here suffering, that means you have to suffer too. Like, this is my burden to bear. And you see Ruth stepping up and be like, no, I will help you. And this is just this discipleship and being a disciple. I am here to help you carry the burden.
Yep. And I think that goes back to building the relationship. They had been together for so long, and I'm sure they'd sat down, they'd had those conversations, because you and I have had this conversation before where it's like, you know, at the beginning of us talking, it was like, look, we're going to stay on this one path. You don't need to worry about me over here. Like, I was not in the trusting mood for anybody. And so it's like, I was always looking at you with a side eye, like, what do you want from me? Like, what are you asking me? Why are you asking me that? What is your problem? And, you know, as we've gone through all of this, like now I don't even second guess when you call, when you say something like out of the blue, what's wrong? What do you mean what's wrong? Nothing's wrong with me. Okay, what's wrong? And it's like, you are one of the few people that can just like, I don't know if you like feel it in the ether or whatever, but you always call like right at that moment. And I think that's the kind of relationship that those two women had. Like, you know, somebody so well that even when they're in their moods, like when Mara was showing up, and Lord knows my Mara shows up sometimes, and Charlene's like, okay, I'm gonna call you back. You know, but when Mara shows up, you know how to help that person get through that space, because Mara is not a permanent condition unless you allow it to be.
Yeah, and you see that, you know, it's funny because Naomi said that when she came back. She said, don't call me pleasant. Because right now you're about to get a bit on me, because all of this stuff that's happened to me, don't call me pleasant, because I ain't gonna be pleasant to you. So if I cuss you out on the side, you know who's coming up. You know who Mara showed up today. Yes, she sure did. I promise you, I told you. I was going through some stuff. You just didn't want to listen to me. And so don't think that your bitterness is not going to show itself.
Right.
We all go through stuff. We all do. And sometimes it will, even when it rears its ugly head. You didn't hear Ruth say it, and I'm sure it showed up. And just the situation playing over in our head, because we get stuck in our head space where, oh, God is punishing me. And you hear her bitterness because she believes that this is punishment from God, not actually that she was being humbled and redeemed.
Right.
She thinks that was a punishment because of the actions of the husband that brought them, you know, her heart posture wasn't right in the beginning part of the story. And
Yeah.
so when everything happened, you know, you don't look at your heart posture. You don't look at your intentions when you made the decision, but you look at the consequences, and you're being punished for the consequences.
Right. And they ask, how in the world did we get here?
And so when folks come up to you like they did when she returned, yeah, I'm gonna be. Let me let y'all know I am hot and heavy, and y'all might get cussed out today because it's just a Mara day today. But Mara is not a, like Nisha said, Mara is not a permanent position. It's just when you're in that place, you can say to somebody, I am a Mara today. I am bitter. Don't call me pleasant today. Don't come smiling in my face. Today's just not the day. I need a mental health day. I need a day off. I need a sick day.
Exactly.
And you could take that and go, not spread your bitterness. Let not that be the cup that others drink out of.
Right. Because the Bible does say be angry, but sin not. So it's okay to be angry, like, but you don't have to inflict it on other people when you are.
Yeah, you kind of want to keep those to yourself. But share them with somebody who's going to help you go through them, pray with you, worship with you, send you back to God and say, hey, you know, maybe you need to go back to God. They're not going to be like Job and his 3 friends, you know. They're not going to be like that and the wife. They're going to be like they're going to be like the 12 disciples in Jesus. We ride or die. Right. I understand that you're bitter. I'm going to be a Ruth for you. I'm going to walk with you through your bitterness. I'm going to make you see that even though everything was taken from you, I'm still here with you. I'm still present with you. I'm still going through this with you. You're not by yourself. And even from a relationship standpoint, as I was speaking, husband and wife, if you made some bad decisions, and this is not even from the Boaz standpoint, this is from the Ruth and Naomi standpoint. And, you know, I always say, look at these stories as yourself. If you're in a marriage situation and your husband has made a mistake where it has caused you guys some problems, don't be Mara. Be a Naomi.
Right.
Be a Ruth in the situation and just say, listen, I know we made some mistake, but there's a redemption coming. I believe in God. And, you know, that was just a learning lesson. It maybe was to humble us. Maybe it was for us to reconfigure and refocus and come back to the table again and just look forward. When bad things happen, sometimes instead of being stuck in your Mara mode, get in your Ruth mode.
Yep. And the other thing, like when you're in that Ruth mode, make sure that you're actually gleaning. Take whatever lesson it is that you can get. Like every episode that you go through, just look at the shows. There's a lesson in every single one of the shows. Every day, God is showing you something that will get you to the next day and will take you one step higher. Doesn't matter if you like the lesson or not. But it's there.
Sometimes, you know, in your Boaz has to come, and just to even tap on him and the redemption that comes, sometimes your Boaz will come from a painful place.
Yep.
Sometimes it's from gleaning in the field, humbling yourself and being in a place where you're like, I don't give up my title, I don't give up my money. I am at the bottom of the barrel scraping for scraps. And you may meet him down there, not when you were at the height of the world, not when you were on top, because you probably couldn't receive him when you were on top, because you wouldn't even look at him. Ruth, if Ruth stayed where she was, in the princess and her title and her privileges, she would have never met Boaz.
Yep.
She would have never met Boaz. And one marriage took her to the next. One marriage childless, you know, her husband passed, and I don't know what she received from that. And he probably loved her and she loved him, and it allowed that love to extend to his mother, to her mother-in-law. And it probably was a loving marriage. But here it is, you know, out of that sorrow, here comes travel and just a transition and being taken through different phases. Here she's in a new place, humbling herself, and this man comes and shows her favor, and she's gleaning his field. And she takes the little that he gives her, and she's humbled with it, and she's grateful for it. And she's still, the little that he gave her, she made much of it because she made it, you know, work for her and her mother-in-law. She never took more. And so he was able to see her and recognize her identity and see who she is, and he actually looked straight through her heart and see her heart and see the posture of her heart. And that's actually what got her the husband.
Yeah. But she was
her past,
full and prepared before he got there.
Huh?
I said she was already whole and prepared before he got there.
Yeah, her heart posture was right. And I think, you know, going through the humility in this situation, this story just keeps repeating itself, just being humble, being in a place of humility and being humble. Yeah. It's not nobody telling you to bite your tongue, but it's kind of like let somebody else see you and glorify you. You know, it's like when Jesus said, when you go to a wedding, don't go sit at the head of the table. Let the person recognize you and bring you to the head of the table, rather than you having your position and going to sit at the head of the table. Let someone else recognize you and put you there. Boaz reckoned, she didn't put herself out. She didn't tell them who she was. She didn't go, saying who she is and what she's done. She didn't throw none of that around, accolades around. She literally just was in a place of humility, gleaning, trying to make ends meet for her somebody else. It's just the humility in her extended so far that it earned her a reward.
Yep.
And Jesus came from Ruth, y'all. Moabite princess. Went over into Bethlehem of Judea. With Ruth, with Naomi, we talk about with Ruth, with Naomi, her humility, that lady is she is one humble, kind-hearted person. Because how many of us would have left our position, title, accolades to go lower ourselves to begging standards when I didn't even have to beg in my father's house? I didn't even have to glean.
Right. Your table was laid, and now you want me to do what?
You want me to do what? I had servants, and now you want me to go. I am actually lower than a servant. I'm a beggar. Mm-hmm. Well, why you didn't keep the wealth? Y'all had wealth when y'all got here. Where's that money at? I'm gonna need you to go find that money. He didn't die leaving no life insurance money.
See, you're just wrong.
But how many of us would think about that? Girl, that was his mama. That ain't your mama. You better let her fend for herself. Put her in a nursing home or something. She'll be all right. There's Social Security and Medicare. But how many of us would even humble ourselves and help someone else lose the money? Money, position and power and privilege. All the pieces of all of these wonderful things that we grasp onto to go help someone else.
If you're honest about it, looking at the whole story, that's probably how she got into the family in the first place, because she was the princess and he did have status. So the two families probably came together through the money connection.
Yeah, that's because when he went to Moab, he still had position and power to the point where they knew who he was. So that's how he was able to marry his son marry a princess.
Yeah. And now
Oprah probably came from wealth, because that's how, combining of the assets and bridal dowry. So it was a combination. It was a good move financially. But then you're in a situation where you had it all and now you lost it all. Even with your husband, are you going to leave him?
Right.
Money and power got you here, but now you don't have it. What else do you have?
That's the question. What comes after?
What comes after that? He's made a mistake. They've made a mistake. Are you going to dwell there? Are you going to lower yourself? Are you going to humble yourself? And it's not even lowering yourself. Are you going to humble yourself and die to self for a greater cause? Jesus did it on the cross, y'all. He had power. He could have had anything he wanted. Satan tempted him 3 times in the wilderness with power, money, and riches. Sarah left her home. What's her name left her home too? Yep. Rahab. Not Rahab. Not Rahab.
Rebecca?
Rebecca did too. Sarah and what's her name? Hagar. You see Hagar doing it too. Princess.
Mm-hmm.
Princess leaving all Egyptian wealth to follow God's people. And she was Sarah's actual handmaid.
Yeah. Talk about humbling yourself.
Talk about humbling yourself, women. It's all about us. It starts and ends. It was your seed that will bruise the head of the serpent. God didn't say it to Adam. He actually said it to Eve.
Well,
and we are the major portion of the Bible. Every story has one of us in there.
Yep.
And our actions and how just one act, Nisha, you think about one action One action, what a reaction it has. Like one action has actually, if you sit there and think about your actions and the ripple effect that comes from it.
Yep. That's one of the things I say, like on the other serial, on the Zigzag Leap. I talk to people all the time, and it's like, you know, you're going through all these zigs and zags and detours, and it doesn't matter what it is. All it takes is one move from you, and you can cause a movement like across the earth.
One person, that's all it took. One person. It always takes one person, one decision to change history, to change the trajectory of your life and a couple of generations behind you.
Yep. But I mean, like, you think just in terms of procreation possibilities, like all the different people that had to come together for this one moment to happen, for David to be there, like going all the way back to
Adam and Eve
and Ruth and Boaz and all of that, and then from David to get to Jesus, like all these people had to come together, and then at the end of it, this one little swimmer had to make it there first. I mean, there's a whole lot that has to go on.
But look at the situation with Naomi and Ruth. That's Abraham and Lot's generation separating.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And after all that time being separated, we all know what happened to Lot. If you don't know, go back and read the Genesis. Lot and Abraham were cousins. Lot was Abraham's nephew. And so they left their father's house together. They get out, they're starting to gain stuff, and they separate. And Lot goes over into Sodom and Gomorrah. God decides to, destroy, but Abraham kind of cried out for him. And so he runs off into the hills with his two daughters, and they just think every man is dead. So let's sleep with our dad and get some babies. And so here comes the Moabites. And so you see the separation right there for generations to come. Separate. And then one after being in the promised land, one family going backwards to get the other side of the family to coming together to bring a lineage forward, that here we are saying where Jesus loved us, the blood washed us. That those, when we look at the Bible, one decision, Eve's decision, Adam's decision, just everybody's decision to shift one step to the left or to the right.
That's it.
David came from this line, like King David, Psalms, David, the one after God's own heart, came from this story right here.
This loyal and compassionate woman who left
everything to and humbled herself and found humility and just being generous and being kind-hearted, and it changed their generation. Hello, look at you, Nisha Jr. Hey. Hey, what's up? Mama's baby.
Yes.
Hey,
okay. Thank you. I'll see you in a minute.
But if you have those relationships, I know what I have to go do now that we've gone through the Ruth episode. I have to go mend a work relationship that I didn't even know the cost to it. And they mentioned it to me today. And as we're talking through the story, and she's talking about the relationship between the women, it's what I keep hearing. You got to go fix that. You got to go. Yes, you didn't start it, but you have to end it. You have the power to end it. You have the power to reconcile that relationship.
Yep.
And not let it be where both of you suffer, and both of them could have suffered.
Mm-hmm. Look at God.
And let me tell y'all, she told me to go back and read the story, because that's what I said. I don't even see what God is doing with the Ruth thing. So for 2 weeks, not that we didn't try to do the episode, I knew Ruth and I got revelation from Ruth way back. But it was as we're going through these stories, and let me tell y'all, read your Bible. Read it for the stories, not just for a scripture, but read it. Get in front of God. Get before God. Get in his presence, because he's going to show you your life. He's going to show you the moments that you're in. And we tell y'all, and y'all, I don't know if y'all think we joke, but every one of these stories that we go through them. We get the lessons from them, like in our lives. I didn't see myself as Ruth in this situation, even with the whole, I see the Boaz part. I got the Boaz part.
Of course.
And the redemptive power, and just the sorrow, that the joy that comes from sorrow sometimes. Mm-hmm. And the first husband passing away, Boaz wrote, Love God. Love God for that one. Ugh. I got it now.
There's a whole lot more that we still got to talk about. But
I got that part now. I just got it. Okay? Just to let you know I got it. The ram in the bush. I got it. I got that part. I got it. I got that.
The
But
ram in the bush comes up like at least once an episode. Like God always has a backup plan.
God always has a backup plan. So even if you think it's one thing, God has a plan, but you just have to stay before him and you have to trust him.
Yes.
You have to let go of that total surrender and trust him. And, you asked me about the cross, and I said, the cross represents for me someone in total surrender, arms wide open, hands off the steering wheel. You just take the car because I can't drive. Like, God, if this is not what I had in mind, but this is the direction you're going, I'm still going with you.
Mm-hmm.
I trust you that if you say go left and left it ain't looking like what, left is looking funny, I'm still going to go left. I'm letting you construct this and do this however, because when we started this journey, what I saw hasn't even come to pass yet. But there are some things that are coming to pass that I'm like, okay, God, I trust you. Because if this is the direction and this is what you're asking of me, then okay, I'm okay with it. But I had a vision the other day sitting down saying, and I remember going before God and say, what do you want me to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want me to do with this? And I said, whatever you say, I will accept it because that's just where I'm at with you. And so even this, man, I love when Jesus shows up. I love when Revelation shows up for your life. And so I am going to fix what I need to fix in the Ruth and the Naomi situation. And recreating those relationships. I know you ain't talking about that one. I know you ain't talking about that. I know you're not talking. Girl, I don't even see you.
Bless you all for joining us this evening.
I don't even see you. I promise you. You're in the dust.
Hey,
Gone with the wind fabulous.
I will see you.
I'm going to leave you in Moab. I promise you. I'm all the way to Bethlehem in Judea. Trust me, I'll go glean in the field. Naomi couldn't do it, but I sure can.
She can't
so,
leave. She knows what she has to do. God bless us, everyone.
Oh, yeah, Jesus, I don't like you. Let me tell you, because you're about to dip out on me. You thought you was slick, huh? I got you, though. I see where you heading, but I ain't heading there downtown with you. Girl, bye. Girl, bye. Girl, bye.
All right, so next week is, because it's 8 o'clock, we got to wrap it up so I can get my baby.
We got to wrap it up.
So next week is Hannah, which is another one who is just
Hannah Mateo.
Juicy. She is sauced, according to the pastor.
Said that. Who said that?
That's what the overseer go. I'm not good at telling the story, but I can tell you what it means. When she was praying and her lips were moving and the guy was like, how much did you have to drink?
She was slithered. Yeah, she went to the bar before she went. Because every time I see you crying, and you over here whispering, who is you talking to? Ain't nobody up in here but you.
Right.
So you must be drunk.
Hannah's a good one.
Yeah. Anna's a constant and fervent prayer.
Yeah.
Being mocked and having to still pray for that. Oh man, Lord blesses her heart. She's actually, her situation is a Leah and Rachel coming back full circle.
Mm-hmm. But see, that's what I'm noticing. Like once you get past a certain point in the Old Testament, he starts closing loops. And the story is like the first story we've already done. So now we're finding like the ending. Like this to me is the ending of Eve. That one is the ending of Leah and Rachel. So it's like
coming back the full circle. The Rahab full sweep. The Rahab full circle. We left you off right here, but we're gonna come back and pick you up.
And every story after Rahab is a closure.
Frontal, lace front closure.
Hey,
that's a closure, a sewing closure or enclosure. But God is making full circles.
Yes.
We thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back. I promise you, we're not going to leave you guys. But I had to get revelation on this story. So if you don't see us join, it's because one, I probably didn't get the revelation yet, because sometimes I have those moments where it's like, God, I'm not seeing what you're doing right here. And then sometimes God stops us so that we can get a full revelation. I had to get this revelation right when I got it too.
Yeah.
Because Naomi and Ruth came up today, and it's been coming up and so I had to get it today in order to have this show to get the revelation. Love you, God. Always and forever will love you. And I got the Boaz revelation. Always and forever will love him.
He makes it so we can't communicate, whether it's through
Yeah, you couldn't even tell me about it. You couldn't actually give me the revelation.
Nope.
Wow.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us at Cocktails in Christ. Like us, share us. We're back. Bear with us. Revelation comes when it's supposed to come. I promise y'all. You get to live it out with us. Literally live it out with us. So thank you for joining us.
We are looking for people for the month for the last week in October and for the month of November to come and share their takes on these.
You remember what I told you at the beginning of the episode? What did I say to you?
I don't know.
I had an interview today, huh?
Oh, okay.
And I thought that's where you were going with it. But I was like, this look, God, I don't like you today. You and her, not my favorite people.
No, but we need people to come with Charlene. I am going to be out for 3 weeks from October 25th, the last week of this month, and then the first couple of weeks of November. So we need people to come and share the story. Yes,
I need co-hosts. That's, that would top her so we don't ever bring her back. No, I'm just she got to come back because I miss her when I don't see her, when I don't talk to her. So if you want to be a co-host on the show and you want to join me and want to give your revelation, give your piece, give your take, give your shade, give your tree, give whatever Jesus is telling you. If he's not telling you, you just want to give it out there to everybody. Let me know. For 3 weeks, I'll need a co-host. I might have to be doing a whole lot of Naomi and Ruth right about now in my life. I'm about to do another Naomi and Ruth. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, I got you. So have a nice night, y'all. I got to get out these people parking lot. I'm going to go pray for some. I'm going to pray. Y'all pray for me, okay?
All right. Good night, y'all.
Night.